Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast, So There I Was. This is episode number 131. You can't just pull over on a cloud.
You can't. Well,
you can't.
You can, but it ain't going to work. You can try. You're going to fall right through the damn thing.
So, I mean, when things start going bad in your car, you just pull over on the shoulder. Well, when things start going bad in the aero machine, you just can't pull over on a cloud.
Yep. You better have some training and procedures in your pocket. And G, our guest, did.
Yeah, this is another. She's awesome. She was an awesome interview.
Right.
We go in this episode. We kind of go into how she had a little physiological surgery. She had a little neck issue, and anyway, it took her off of actual flying in the aircraft status, but it opened another door to Reapers, flying the remotely piloted aircraft called the Reaper, which is, just like the name sounds, deals in death.
The Grim Reaper. It does deal in death, just like the A-10 Warthog.
Yes.
Which is a little more up close and personal. But I'll tell you what I've seen, they see everything as if they're in the cockpit almost, if they're in the airplane. So she managed to take out some dudes who were planting an IED, trying to harm our troopers. So, God bless you. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah. Let's not ruin the unique part about that.
Right? No.
Because it was very unique. But,
she might have been flying a Reaper, but she was a predator. Let's put it that way.
You're damn straight.
Oh.
Yeah, but that whole part of the interview was interesting to me because I really never got to talk to somebody like that, and we got into some areas that, you just don't think about, like 1 minute you're flying a combat mission, actually dealing death from above, and then 30 minutes later you're picking up Cheerios at the cereal aisle at the grocery store to take home to your kids. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
I mean, this is really out of the box. Kind of stuff. Very interesting
experience. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun to chat with G. You mentioned in the show that, how I stumbled across her, and boy, was that a fortunate thing for all of you who are listening to this. It'd be fun to do. She got a couple hours flying the A-10, a couple more hours flying the Reaper. What do you have in your notes there?
1,500 combat support hours in the Reaper. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
I mean, that is really a lot of time. And I don't want to run all the details, but she actually got back in the cockpit of an actual aircraft, finished out her career.
Absolutely.
Which really kind of led her into the cross-check mental performance training and Athena's voice.
Right. So she has Athena's voice. And that's how I ran across her. I was looking for someone else, and it turns out that G represented the other person I was looking for. Let's see what else. There are a couple things. Oh, and G also has, I think you mentioned it, cross-check mental performance. So if you Google cross-check mental performance and Tammy Barlett, she's got a course coming up in November. I think it is an outstanding course. I've got my daughter signing up for it, and I'm eager to see the feedback on that. It's my impression
Sticks is trying to get his budding aviator signed up for it as well.
Yeah, in fact, I need to talk to him about that to make sure he has the right link, because it is coming up in November, and I think it's one of those things that will last you a lifetime if you're a budding aviator, to help you tackle things like check ride-itis and all that.
Hey, speaking of budding aviators, sponsor this week, FTIratings.com.
Wonderful, loyal sponsor. Thank you so much, FTIratings.com. If you are needing a type rating or need to get your ATP, that's the way to do it. Don't do it the hard way, the painful way.
Don't do it like we did.
No.
Do it the easy way.
Right. I mean, these guys are all experienced. They've got decades of experience, and they've all been exactly where you are, and they know how to get you ready. So when you take your check ride, you're just going to be doing what you've been doing for the last few days, just doing it again, and it's a non-event. So I think, I don't know, maybe we should get out of the way. Listen to what G has to say. These are amazing stories.
Let's do it.
All right.
Don't sit
on the ejection seat handle.
Don't do it.
No. Well, there's not an ejection seat handle in the van for the Reaper, is there? Asking for a friend.
I don't know. I don't think there is.
I don't think so. No.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that...
Well, welcome back, G. We're glad to have you back with us this week. Last week we were talking about flight school and your first assignment in the A-10 and some of that cool stuff. I misstated that you flew the Raptor, and when I meant to say the Predator. So that was some pretty cool stuff we'll get into. But, well, I guess we can get into it in this way. How is it you wound up going to the Predator? You had some issues that medical caused you to leave the 10?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember being in pilot training, and when we would get our assignments, they would, there was usually some creative way to give assignments, and we would make jokes about somebody getting a UAV. Haha, that's funny. Like, and then it became a reality. But for me, what happened was
not so funny when it's you.
Yeah. Well, you can't see forward that well all the time. I didn't have the wisdom to look forward that clearly. But I for sure didn't think it was going to be me, and I ended up, it was a choice I made truly, because what happened was there was an incident actually in the T-37. I was flying a Finney flight for one of my friends, so their final flight in the T-37, and we were flying formation. We were just doing maneuvering, and the other guy was flying in the jet, and he went from 0 to 6 Gs in like an instant, because the T-37 had a really rapid G onset rate, and I was looking up through the bubble canopy, and I just got crunched, and I thought, why did you do that? Like, what was the point? Like this whatever. And so I was senior enough where I kind of had the liberty to take myself off the schedule. And so I did. Kind of like, oh, that sucks. I'll get better. And I went through Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals, which is kind of like, it's the fighter weed out program where they still use a T-38, but they do like air to ground, air to air basics to make sure that you can do these things and they don't waste fighter jet training on you. So I went through that program seeing a chiropractor, and then all through the A-10 training, I saw a chiropractor. And then when I got to Korea, I don't think they have chiropractors. I couldn't find any at the time. And so twice I woke up and my neck was just locked. But being the stupid pilots that we are, thinking that we are only qualified to fly aircraft and we couldn't possibly be skilled at anything else, I was like, and I went and flew. Like, I remember trying to look at my data card on the takeoff, and I was like, what's our takeoff time? I went and flew anyways. Thank goodness we weren't doing air to air, but I finally decided that wasn't smart. And I essentially ended up having cervical spine reconstruction because there was a disc in my neck that was literally busted in pieces. They were taking pieces out, and they put cadaver bone and a metal plate on it when I got back to the States after Korea. And that was what took me out of the A-10. I actually could have gotten a waiver to go back into the A-10, but it would have caused me to go back into A-10 training, which would have put me back in the assignment cycle. And the chances of me getting Tucson again were limited. And I had fought to get Korea Tucson because my soon-to-be husband was there. And so I learned of this squadron, the 214th. They were flying the Predator. And they said, well, why don't you see if you can go fly the Predator? And it was actually a really great opportunity. I went from full-time active duty to AGR. So I was active guards, full-time guardsman. And it worked out really well because okay, I'm back. Are you back?
Okay.
Was that me or?
No, I think
I don't know.
that was
Everything
all of
went
us.
gone.
Yeah.
There's some solar flare activity going on. I'm not kidding about that. So it's not surprising that we got some crazy shit.
We've been getting amazing northern lights up here in New England. So, yeah. All right. Sorry. So,
I was just going to say that it worked out really well for me because the squadron was essentially built from some part-time KC-135 pilots in Phoenix. Great group of guys, but just didn't have the combat type, the experience to understand how to employ weapons in combat in a stack and, how to interface. And so having my close air support background in the A-10 kind of plunked into the RPA community was fairly useful. So, I'm not saying it was me they were after, but my background was very valuable to them.
Help me with the timing on some of this, though. So you did how long in the A-10 in Korea?
It was the totality of it was really only about 2 years, 2.5 years. Yeah.
And then back to Tucson flying. And you were still flying the A-10 in Tucson, or?
Well, I was only in Korea for a year, but the whole time, my A-10 time training through Korea and back was about 2 years. So it was a really short amount of time. Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately. So
well, that is a tough environment to fly the A-10, and we worked with those guys some when we were based in Iwakuni, and that's where I gained a real appreciation for how difficult it is to fly that airplane. You're everything. We were single seat in Harrier, single seat, single engine. You at least had 2 engines, so you could shut one down if you needed to. Yeah. But I gained a real appreciation watching the A-10 folks do their work, and came to realize that's not a mission for amateurs in any way, shape, or form. That is real varsity ball.
Yeah.
And I was never a flight lead, and I wish I had been. I didn't have an opportunity, but I will tell you that watching from the wing, and obviously I executed as well, but I didn't do all the decision making. And I watched some of the flight leads and I thought, wow, it's really incredible what you're managing. Like, we're doing 2v2, we're trying to integrate, like attacks and with other airplanes and like how they just make these decisions. And I knew that eventually had I stayed the path, I would be able to do that too. You got to have confidence in that, but I never got to. So I have a lot of respect for those who did a ton of time in the A-10, and they did some great work over in OEF specifically. It was, awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think you're being too humble. I really do. I think, flight lead or wing, you're still single seat, and you are juggling plates and the spinning balls like there's no tomorrow. Trying to keep it.
Well, I think sometimes it was funny to me because I'm trying to keep an eye on the flight lead. I'm trying to we literally had physical maps in our aircraft that we would take our grease pencils, we'd write the coordinates on the canopy, so we'd have them, and then we'd plot them on the map, and trying to keep track of flight lead and stay in the right position, so and then look at the ground and find the target and find the right target. There's a lot going on, but we all have
that's more work.
It's like juggling, tapping your head, rubbing your belly, jumping on one leg.
There you go.
Reciting the ABC backwards. Yeah. Yeah. We can feel your pain because close air support, the way we used to train, especially down low, because, in our day, it was, we were still training to fight the Russians. So we were training at very low altitude, close air support, a lot of moving parts. Yeah. Got it busy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally get it.
Yeah. And 2 seconds of inattention meant death, so.
Yeah.
So what was the training like for the RPA gig? Did it make sense? I mean, is it really like flying an airplane, or is it more video game-ish? Because you were
it was interesting because you have the camera so you have a heads-up display. It's a computer screen, and you have a heads-up display. So you have what I call the green goo that, I had in the A-10, right? Yeah. But the green goo in the A-10 always matched the maneuvering of the aircraft. In the RPAs, the camera, which is under the bottom of the aircraft, that's looking around at the target, it can be looking at whatever. So I had to learn to separate my brain, like what I was looking at. Like I had to. Yeah. And so for, I think, people who aren't used to heads up display, it wasn't as big of a deal. But I remember at first being like, oh, this is so disconcerting. Like you're zooming in on a target and I'm trying to fly this plane with the data that's overlaid on top of you zooming on the target. That was
so weird. Someone else controlling the camera, the ball.
Yep.
Oh, are
So
they
I
sitting
flew-
next to you or are they somewhere else?
Yes, they sit right next to me. So I sit in the left, they sit in the right. I control the plane. I get the aircraft. Like if we're going to launch a missile, I get the aircraft in the WES. I launch the missile. They guide the missile because they have the laser on it. They have the camera and the laser. So
Tammy,
you have to work together.
we know what WES is, but can you define
sorry.
WES for
Weapons
our
employment
non-aviation?
zone? Yes, I
There
had to
we
get
go.
the aircraft in a specific place, which in compared to the A-10. So we talked about
You
in
weren't
the last
looking at your
episode.
accelerometer while you were doing that, were you? Just asking
Yeah,
for
my
a friend.
G-meter. Yeah. In the last episode, we talked about how I had about 2 seconds, right, to like
Yeah.
be 45 degrees and right airspeed and the right.
Yeah.
And in the Predator, the weapons deployment zone is huge. Like, there's no reason you
Okay.
can't get in it pretty easily, but people
Okay.
still had trouble with it.
Wow.
But there you go. Yeah.
So you were you were physically sitting in somewhere in Tucson.
Yeah, so
And
my
you were-
training was done at Creech, and so we would fly
okay.
planes at Creech. But the funny thing about RPAs is because I definitely never landed it. I may have done one takeoff, but you get qualified in an aircraft that you don't take off and land. The only time you get qualified to take off and land is if you're going to be part of I forget even what they call it, but when there's a few pilots that go forward to do the takeoffs and landings via line of sight, and then they hand off the aircraft to those of us who are like, for example, once I got done with training, I was in Tucson. They would shut down their line of sight link with the aircraft, and we would pick up the link via satellite and control it. So there was a moment that there was the plane was told, hey, we're going to stop talking. If we stop talking, you do this for 30 minutes and then you go here. And so they would shut the link down and I would pick up the link and then grab the plane, if you will, via satellite.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So you were
And how-
go ahead, repeat.
I'll say how you may not have been able to tell because when you told it to do something, but could you tell how much of a delay there was? Because you're dealing with an airplane that's on the other side of the planet. Satellite delay, light only travels so fast.
Right. We can't tell. We just know it's about 2 seconds, and which is the reason we didn't do landings.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. you. So what?
Blair,
what
too
you
late?
just,
You already hit.
Yeah.
But what you just described makes complete sense to me. This event that I had, I was in Fort Huachuca, Sierra Vista.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And we were waiting to take off, and there were the tower frequency. On the tower frequency, we could hear the tower controller and the person that was supposed to be doing the final controlling of this big RPA. And he had lost link, and so they didn't know where it was. They were talking about where you didn't know where it was, and we saw this airplane on final. It came in, landed, and it was RPA, one of those big ones. I don't know if it was a Predator. It wasn't. They were using it to patrol the border down there.
That was probably a Reaper. My husband's a Border Patrol agent, and they used Reapers. So
Okay. So it's big. It's not small.
It's big.
Anyway, it lands on center line, rolls up to about where we are, and stops. Meanwhile, the tower controller and the guys that was looking for the Reaper just kept talking and talking. And when finally there was a break, I said, "Hey, I think I found your plane. It's sitting right in front of me." And they go, "Oh, Roger that. Stand by." And then he got it and taxied it off. So when you said link to link, okay, now it makes sense.
yeah, back when I was flying it, obviously they have some sort of auto land now, which makes sense. I mean, I flew it almost 20 years ago, but that, you tell it what to do. And you always, if you ever move locations, you have to say, hey, airplane, if we lose communication, I want you to do these things and then go here. And so if I were to like in war, if I were to move kill boxes and I don't move my lost link mission, it's going to go back to where I was before. And there's that kind of piece that you have to play in. But in this case, it sounds like they had it coming home, like
Yeah,
literally.
I don't know. I know years before flying in Afghanistan, no one's talking. Those things didn't have TCAS on them. And, several times I'd see a shadow go over me and I go, what the hell was that? And then it was a drone. No, nobody's talking. It was literally the Wild Wild West. We're talking 2008, 2009 timeframe.
Okay, it's really ironic that you mentioned that because there was an occasion where I was listening because I was the weapons officer in the squadron. So anytime we took a shot, I would evaluate it. I would give massive feedback on what went right, what went wrong. learn from it.
Okay.
And I remember listening to one of the audios, and the JTAC was talking to some F-18 pilots, and I could tell that our crew was not listening. They were like, "Oh, that's not for us, blah, 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 blah." And they keep talking to themselves. And I'm like, wait a minute. They just told you they checked in at an altitude below you, and you guys are about to shoot a missile. I was so pissed off. I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? And this had all already taken place. So here I am debriefing my squadron going, you guys, you have to listen to the radio calls, even if it's not your call sign, because there's valuable data there. But we got it ironed out, and there was massive improvements over time. It just, lessons take time. I'm just grateful that nothing bad happened.
So do you log time just like you do flight time? Do you log time, in Reaper?
Yeah,
like when you sit
it's
in the
not
seat and you're controlling.
It's RPA time, so it's designated as RPA time. And then when you're doing combat sorties, it's combat support time. So recently, I was giving a keynote, and they introduced me saying had 1,500 hours of combat time, and I couldn't walk on that stage. I had to clarify because I knew there was like Army guys or guys in the going, wait, what? 1,500 hours? That's a lot of combat time. I'm like, no, it's combat support time. I just wanted to clarify. I mean, I sat for years, and I would sit watching OIF, OEF, sometimes both in the same day, and then I would go home and take care of my kids and do that thing and come back and go back to combat, and day after day after day, because for several years.
That has to be. You got to put that shit in a box, right? I mean, you got to put it in a box when you go home, and I mean, that's got to be. I don't even know how to describe that. How do you do that? I mean, you just left that combat environment, and then you go help go in the grocery store, with their lunch. Mom, how come I can't find my? So what's that like?
So I think that they've done a really good job now of starting to address that issue, recognizing that a lot in history or traditionally you're deployed and you're with your squadron and you kind of just deal with all that as it goes. And in this case, you're going home every night. And so they're doing a lot of stuff to address that nowadays. But back when I was flying in, 2006 to 2011, there wasn't that. And I think about some of the people I flew with who hadn't gone through the process that I had gone through when I was trying to decide which fighter jet I wanted to fly. So I had already kind of thought through, okay, how does this work? Am I going to be able to do this? Because I did a lot more damage in the unmanned community than I ever did in the A-10. And I literally would go home I was pregnant through 2 of my pregnancies. I was flying combat sorties, and I would, and my kids are 14 months apart, the oldest 2. I have 3 now, but I would be going home to a newborn and being 7 months pregnant myself. It was just crazy, but it's all about compartmentalizing and understanding your role in the moment and separating them. Does everybody have the ability to do that? It takes practice, and I had already had practice, I think, because of my experience prior.
I'm going to make a statement, and I'm going to go up. I'm going to take flack for this, but I'm going to say, from personal experience, I live with one of you people, and I know that that women are much stronger than men are, not in the physical sense. So I'm sure that you dealt with it probably much better than your average guy would have. I'm just saying.
I'll second that. Yeah. The multitasking. Look, the multitasking I watch my wife do, I just jaw dropping at it. But compartmentalization. I don't know why, but a generalization, not true of all people, obviously, but a generalization is I think women are better at it than dudes. And I think part of it is, like you said, you consciously went through that whole decision process when you were trying to decide whether to go to the fighter bomber community in the first place. So I think you're right. I think that helped a lot. But I think it uniquely positions you for something we're about to talk about in a little bit, which is pilot mental fitness. So,
Hey, I'm looking through the show notes because I saw one earlier, and I think we might have passed it. But did you become a weapons officer in the Reaper?
Yeah, it was a Predator Reaper program. It's a good story. I was actually 5 months pregnant with my second child, driving home from work when my cell phone rang, and I looked down and I saw that it was my squadron commander. So I decided, I should probably pull over and take this call. Well, come to find out, he wanted to know if I would be interested in attending U.S. Air Force Weapons School in 7 months. And the truth of it is, I almost instantly said, F no. And I don't really swear a lot, so that speaks volumes about what I thought about this proposal. But I didn't do that. I knew that wasn't how I should respond. And so I just said, let me get back to you. And I instantly thought, I was like, man, okay, when is this training? Okay, so I'm going to have an 18-month-old and a 3-month-old when the training starts. And it's 6 months of very intense training away from home. And I was
honey,
like,
you're going to be busy.
this doesn't even make sense. Like, this isn't possible. I'm like, are they really asking me? Like, who am I to be going to weapons school? Like, I never considered myself weapons school material. I thought that door was closed. And so now I'm presented with something I completely didn't expect. And I went home to tell my husband about this ridiculous opportunity that was presented to me.
And how busy he was going to be.
And my husband at the time, he is Border Patrol tactical team. So he's like the SWAT for the Border Patrol. So it's not like just, like a 9 to 5. And he looks at me and he says, you have to go. You have to go.
Boom.
You can't turn on an opportunity like this. And I was like, what? But those are moments in our life when we don't believe in ourselves, that we have to trust those around us who believe in us and go, okay, he thinks I can do it. My squadron thinks I can do it. I decided to go for it. And
Nice.
It was, it was crazy. I was 9 months pregnant. I'm getting ready for weapons school. I'm still flying combat missions. Well, I flew all the way up until 36 weeks. And I was doing the overnight shift because I didn't want to be that person who's like, oh, I can't do that because I'm pregnant. I probably could have said that, but I did it. I was sleeping on a cot, doing all sorts of, had a baby at home.
God.
Like, it was nuts. I'm not saying, I'm not advocating everyone should do this, but I was in the mode of like proving it can be done. And so I'm all getting ready to go. I got accepted into weapons school because there's an application process to it. And then I get called into my commander's office. And which is normal. Like, that happens all the time. Like, we were talking about a lot of weapons school stuff, but he was acting weird. It was the deputy commander, and he was like kind of like not looking me in the eyes, and he was kind of scooting around in his chair. And I was like, what is going on? And I was like, oh, maybe it's because I'm super pregnant and I'm making everybody around here really uncomfortable. Because, it was full term. And all of a sudden, it was crystal clear why he was so uncomfortable. He said to me, we didn't really understand the caliber and intensity of weapons school when we asked you to apply. And given your current circumstances, we don't think it's in the best interest of the squadron to send you.
Oh.
And I literally was speechless for quite a bit. And then I said to him, with all due respect, sir, I applied. I got accepted. I'm going. And that was not an easy decision. I didn't walk out of his office being like, yeah, I got this. I was like, oh no, like, they're doubting me. Can I really do this? But the truth is that I look back on it not as like, that person's a jerk. It was kind of a crap move, but
right. Too little, too late. You shouldn't have asked in the first place. True.
Because I was like, they knew I was pregnant. And when they asked me to apply, do they like not understand how this whole thing works? But I looked at it as fuel to keep me going when it got super hard, because it got really hard. Like, it was one of those situations where I would never take back going to weapons school, but I don't know if I would do it again. It was really, really hard. And my husband obviously was taking care of a 3-month-old and an 18-month-old, and he supported me, but he still to this day sometimes is like, you left me.
How could you? Oh, that's awesome. Tell us what a typical day in the life of a weapons school student is. That sounds hard.
let's see. It depends on the day, but typically there's some sort of very intense, in-depth academics, and there's planning and lots of planning. And then you plan with the other students that are there. And, we didn't fly every day, but you would fly. And honestly, debriefs could be hours and hours. I think one time I was debriefing a flight till like 3 a.m. And then you got to turn around and come back because you had to get to the root cause of the problem. There's a lot of contributing factors to the errors that were made or like what happened. But when you come out of weapons school, you're not just an advanced tactician. You are an elite instructor because that's their goal, to make you a really solid instructor pilot, because you'll be the lead instructor pilot in the squadron when you go back. And, the patch you wear on your left shoulder for the rest of your career, your Air Force specialty code actually changes, has a different letter, has a W in front of it. So everybody knows you're a weapons school graduate. Like, it's a big deal. A lot of long hours, a lot of pushing you to where your limit is, just to see if, where your boundary is, and that's just part of the process. Are you going to crumble? Because they will push everyone to their own edges. That might be different for everyone, but how are you going to handle that?
Nice. Okay. Hey, well, let's take a quick minute to thank FTIratings.com for bringing this show to you. So there I was, thinking about all you aspiring airline pilots, or those of you out there looking to get your type rating. Well, you're in luck, because today I want to tell you about Flight Training International, or FTIratings.com, and why it's the place you want to be if you're serious about elevating your pilot game. Since its inception back in 1993, FTI has been laser focused on raising the standards of pilot training. Now, let me tell you something. FTI isn't just another flight school. Oh no, it's veteran founded and designed to deliver high quality, cost effective training across the board. Whether you're aiming for the Airbus or Boeing, they've got you covered. The simulators they use aren't just fancy toys. These are full-motion, FAA-certified beasts that give you the exact conditions you're going to face in the real world and on your type ride or your ATP check ride. So, we're talking about the kind of simulators that make you sweat, but, in a good way. And what makes it even better? The instructors. These aren't just any instructors. They're professionals who've been where you are. Most of them come from a military background and have logged thousands of hours flying commercial airliners around the globe. Let me be clear. This isn't your typical flight school stuff. FTI is all about upping your game to get that ATP, the advanced certification you need before you can even think about sitting in the cockpit of a Part 121 airliner. FTI also offers the Airline Transport Pilot Certification Training Program, or ATP-CTP, which is the mandatory prerequisite for getting your ATP rating. This program was mandated by Congress to ensure pilots are fully equipped to meet the demands of modern aviation, and it's the essential step that prepares you for the highest level of certification in the industry. And here's the kicker. You can access all of their training materials wherever you are, thanks to their slick iPad app, so there's no need to log around heavy books or sit in a stuffy classroom. Now here's something just for our listeners. If you sign up for your first course at FTI and mention, "So there I was," they'll give you a cool $100 off. Yeah, you heard that right. And whether you're a seasoned pilot looking to sharpen your skills or a military aviator looking to transition into commercial aviation, FTI is where you want to be. So what are you waiting for? Check out FTIratings.com. That's FTIratings.com. Join the ranks of their alumni, which includes pilots from the Air Force, Navy, and even the FAA. If they trust FTI, you can too. And don't forget, you can use your veterans benefits to cover the cost of training at FTI. So gear up, check your pre-flight, and get ready for takeoff. Head over to FTIratings.com today and start your journey towards becoming a top-tier airline pilot. Don't just fly, soar with FTI. Okay, I think we should pick it up with, you had some missile shots where you targeted some IED planters.
Yeah.
Was that before or after weapons school?
Let's see. It was when I was pregnant with my son. So I had as it was before weapons school, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. But I kind of mushed this together a little bit because, I did the same thing for 6 years, because it went on for so long, and we couldn't,
Sure.
I mean, we didn't even really do any training we did was actually in combat, when there was a little bit of downtime. So, but yeah, I was flying, and I was very pregnant, 7 months, and which is funny in itself because when I first got pregnant, I went to the flight doc just to make sure because I was super excited on my first pregnancy. And he said, "Yep, you are pregnant." And he's like, "And you're grounded." And I'm like, "What am I grounded for?"
Wait, what?
I'm like,
yeah, grounded from what?
3 feet off the ground on the other side of the base. What are you grounding me for? And he's like, "Well, we don't have any regulations for unmanned aircraft, so we have to apply the heavy aircraft regulations to you." So we spent I was grounded for the first trimester, but the heavy aircraft can fly. Those pilots at the time, they could fly second trimester. Now the rules have all changed. But so during those first, I was grounded the first 3 months, the second 3 months I could fly, and we were working to get the regulation changed. And we got it changed before I hit the third trimester, and the regulation now stated I could fly till 36 weeks. So then during my second pregnancy, once I had an ultrasound and proved everything was good on the pregnancy, they let me fly right away. And I was 7 months pregnant with my son, and I called for a bathroom break because sometimes you fly these for a really long time, and I had a big baby sitting on my bladder. And so the other pilot who was the backup pilot came in, and he was just standing there. It was on autopilot, and he just kind of stood there monitoring it, went to the bathroom. And I came back and walked into the GCS, the ground control station, and he turns around, he goes, "Hey, you got a 9 line, which means I got a target."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay."
Oh,
and
boy.
I was like, "Okay." So I was the chief instructor even before I went to weapons school. So he figured I'll just let her take it. So I sat down in the seat, got all the data. And essentially what was happening was we had been scanning a road that our troops were going to be driving on. And it was the middle of the night. And these 2 guys were placing an IED. And that's when, it takes a long time to get clearance because they absolutely want to make sure that it is what it is. And we're not taking anything that we're not supposed to take out. And
Not going after 2 guys changing a flat tire.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we did eventually get the clearance and took the shot. And there's instant messenger, secure instant messenger. And so we were talking over the radio to get the clearance for the shot. And then when we told him we shot and all that, so he knew what was happening, the guy on the ground, the controller. And he was also in this instant messenger chat with us. So when the shot was over, I said to him, "You can obviously tell by my voice that I'm female, but I wanted to let you know I'm 7 months pregnant." And he was like, "What?" Because I honestly think this is 2009. I think very well could have been the first massively pregnant female with an air to ground kill. I mean, I know people were pregnant they didn't know they were pregnant, but
Yeah.
I was very pregnant.
Oh, you were way pregnant.
No doubt in your
Pretty
mind.
awesome.
Yes.
I thought you couldn't be a little pregnant or a lot pregnant. It was
Well, that's true. Depends on your perspective.
Well,
right?
there you go, right? But,
yeah. So there's that story.
oh, that's
Massively.
great.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, that really is. Doing all that and having babies, and which I got to say, I'm glad women have babies, man, because there'd be a lot less babies in the world if dudes had to do it. It looks like it hurts.
Was that in Iraq or Afghanistan in 2009?
That was Afghanistan.
Damn,
Yep.
Nice.
Okay.
I was there in 2009. Do you remember what month it was by chance? You were
I
7
feel like
months
I
pregnant?
want to say January. Yeah,
Okay.
because he was born in April 4th.
January. Okay. All right. I was
Nice.
there in the fall through February of 9 into 10.
Okay.
That time around. All right. Awesome. That's a great story. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you eventually returned to flying.
I did. Being the only weapons school graduate in the whole Air National Guard, because I was actually in the first class they ever had of our unmanned pilots weapons school. And we just couldn't get another graduate through. And I had my hands full already with, my squadron, trying to help them and teach them. And guard bureau and every other squadron. And I mean, not directly, but it kind of felt like they thought I was their weapons officer too. And I was pretty maxed out and stressed out. We really wanted another baby. And I told my husband, I said, I'm not going to put another baby in my belly right now. It's just too much. And so I knew I could get a waiver, but I had to find a job. And so I found a job flying the T-38 back at Laughlin, where I started.
Okay.
I was actually looking to fly the T-6 because I'd flown the T-37, and I thought that would be the T-6 it was the replacement to the T-37. But they're like, we don't have any T-6 spots. You want to fly the T-38? I'm like, I haven't flown an actual aircraft in like 6 years, but sure. And it went fine. It wasn't any issues. And being out 6 years seems like it could be a long time. And for some people, I guess it was, but the formation is the hardest. And like I told you, I love formation. So it was a blast for me. And I was a full-time reservist. And the reason we chose that location was because my husband's border patrol. So he eventually got a job there. We spent about a year apart because it was actually difficult to get him a job at Del Rio because it's like the hub of some really tiny stations. They all want to get to Del Rio. So eventually we got there together, and I waited a whole year to get pregnant with my third child because I didn't want to walk into the squadron and be like, hey guys, I'm here, I'm grounded. So we waited a year before we had another, and the rules are different now. You can fly like pregnant in an injection seat and everything. It's different, but I was immediately grounded as soon as I was pregnant, and I couldn't return to fly until it was 6 weeks postpartum.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you did that until you retired?
I did.
You stayed at Laughlin?
Yes, full time. I love, like awesome. I told you, I love teaching, and it was so rewarding. Yeah.
Very cool. And that looks like a fun airplane to fly. The T-38 just looked.
It is.
Well, that thing looks fast sitting on the ramp.
It does.
I mean, look at it.
It just does.
Yeah.
So very cool. Well, I would back up, ask you when, where, and how did you meet your husband?
Yeah, I met him when I came here for A-10 training. We both were on Match.com, and we met on Match.com. It was so funny though, because he got made fun of as the only guy in the Border Patrol who had a girlfriend whose job was cooler than his, because I was going through A-10 training. So that was pretty funny, but he handled it well. That's why it worked out so well, because usually guys were either like, that's awesome, like almost drooling over themselves when they found out what I did. And that's the job. It wasn't me. It was like, oh my gosh, it's a cool job. But then there was the guys who they couldn't handle it. And so to find someone who was really had his own solid career and he could support mine and not be intimidated it was awesome.
Perfect. That's fantastic.
Sounds like you guys were supposed to meet.
Yeah, it worked out.
Right?
For sure.
Nice. Okay. So retired out of the T-38 as a lieutenant colonel. That's awesome. And then which did you start first? The Athena's Voice or the Crosscheck?
It was Athena's Voice, which is speaking. Yeah, it's a speaking business. It's a speaker referral business that features 9 female military aviators. But what happened is that I was about 4 years from retiring. And again, my husband comes up to me and he says, I know what you're going to do when you retire. And I was at this very desk at our old house, and I looked up and I'm like, yeah, okay, you tell me, I want to know. And he goes,
smart guy.
Yeah. He goes, motivational speaking. And wow. I got a little bit nauseous and thought to myself, you're insane. That doesn't sound fun at all. Thanks for the recommendation. But then what happened is that I kind of marinated on that thought for a while. I'm like, why did he say that? And then I realized
the seed.
that, people ask me to talk on occasion because I have a very unique story. And the part of me that was really avoiding it was the part that I don't want to be at the center of attention. I don't want to be up on stage going me, me, me. And when I realized that there's so many women that quietly go off into the night and they don't even talk about what they did, let alone talk on a stage about what they did, I thought, it's really selfish of me not to share, because the way I see it is that if you are blazing a trail, if you blaze that trail and then you just quietly disappear, somebody else has to start the trail over again. And so I thought, okay, well, why don't we blaze this trail, get it. I got as far as I could. I will keep the path clear. I will shine a massive floodlight on it so people can get as far as I did as fast as they can, and then continue on way further. So that was kind of the motivation behind Athena's Voice. Because what happened was I reached out to Heather Penny, another female fighter pilot who was already speaking. And I said, tell me about this speaking thing. How do you do this? And can I do this? And she said, we should start a business. And she was originally my business partner. She got too busy for it. She's still on the speaking team, but she doesn't own it with me anymore. But we originally started it together, and we recruited a bunch of military pilots, female pilots. Yeah.
And do you normally speak to large groups, or is it kind of corporate leadership stuff, or what? Tell me what you do.
It depends. Like I do like a corporate, I recently did a corporate sales conference for Teledyne FLIR Defense. I've spoken to Long Beach PD and LAPD. I'm going to Napa Fire. I've spoken at Caterpillar. It's just a variety of different things, but that's typically where I speak. I'm trying to break into more of the aviation. I recently spoke at the North Texas Business Aviation Safety Showdown, which was cool because, it leads into my other business, the cross-check, So I talk about mental performance training in my keynote and how everybody really needs to be doing it, not just athletes. And aviators absolutely should be using those skills because in my mind, mental performance training fills the gap between needing mental health support and being completely of healthy mind. Like, cause if you think about it, when you're not completely healthy physically, you don't go running to the doctor. You do things first and then you seek the doctor. But I think when it comes to mental health, a lot of people don't have the tools to take care of their mental health and just taking care of yourself, just a little bit of self-care stuff. And eventually they get to a point where they need that therapy, which is fine. We sometimes need help. We need a doctor. But I think if more people utilize the techniques found in mental performance training that athletes use, people would be healthier mentally and more capable of handling more tasks. They'd be more confident, more focused. There'd be less perfectionism, less fear of failure. There's just lots of less anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, able to handle stress, right?
Well, back up a little. I definitely want to spend some more time on the mental performance. But so you're relatively close to Embry-Riddle Prescott. You should be teaching those kids, among other things. But yeah. So, but is it AthenasVoiceUSA.com? Is that?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. AthenasVoiceUSA.com. Yep.
Okay. Perfect. And I think you have, I recall going there and looking at some of the videos of the speakers that you have, and they were fantastic. And in fact, full confession here, folks, what happened was someone sent me Heather Penny's name, and so I looked her up, and I wound up writing a contact form on that website. And Tammy was kind enough to reply to me, and then I went and looked at the website and saw some of her videos and went, oh my, we need her on this show too. This is great stuff. You've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and this is a great story. This is good stuff. So we were thrilled when you agreed to come on with us.
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So
you have a great story, and you tell it well. Yeah. And,
exactly.
Repeat said it earlier. I want to say it again. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
What a small percentage of our population serves, and what you did was very unique in a lot of ways. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. You're welcome.
And so you moved from Athena's Voice and into what's the website now for CrossCheck Mental Performance?
Well, there's two ways to get to it. You can either go to TammyBarlett.com, and then you can click on the mental performance tab.
Tammy, BARLETTE.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can go to the tab, or you can go to crosscheckmentalperformance.com, and it will navigate you to the same website. That will just take you right to the course. So right now I have the 4-week course, but we didn't talk too much about my time in the 38, but I spent 6 years teaching in the T-38, and that's truly where all this cross-check mental performance, where it was born. And I didn't really, I didn't know it at the time, but what I realized is that I started teaching a class on confidence to all the students coming in. because I just thought they were lacking true confidence. It was a lot of, I'm going to fake it, but like, how do we get to
fake
be real
it till you
confident?
make it?
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but let's have some topics and some techniques to actually develop some confidence, or even just understand the fact that when people show up at pilot training, they're truly, I mean, they have to be almost, I mean, the best of the best, and to get there, to go through the academy or ROTC or whatever it is they went to, it's highly competitive, and a lot of these people have never failed at anything. And I tell them, you will fail at aviation.
Big time overachievers their whole life normally, right? And then,
yes. Yeah.
One of them got to be once.
Yeah, they haven't experienced failure. Oh, stop.
Yeah.
But
no, you know the type. What I'm talking about. They get a B and their whole world goes down around them. It's like, oh my God, this is horrible. And so you're right. They haven't experienced true failure.
Yeah, and they don't know what to do, and then they think that the world is over. And so I address that, and I address the whole class, and I tell them, when maybe you're not failing, but your buddy is, you need to have some understanding and help them out, because this is a challenging time. Whether you're doing aviation in the military, you're doing aviation in the civilian world, it will challenge you. And I learned over time that I needed to get their minds out of their way before I could really teach them. Because obviously I did stick and rudder instruction. That was my job. But the mental performance training was really the thing that set people apart when they, to perform well. And there's a story I could share. When I'd been teaching for a couple of years in the T-30 at this point, and I was scheduled to fly with a student I hadn't flown with before, which, happens. And so I was briefing him, and as I'm instructing, I like to pay attention to the student. What's their body language? How are they responding? I kind of just, where do they seem to be mentally, emotionally? Because that plays into aviation. I mean,
sure.
When we fly, we're impacted by everything. And can we compartmentalize? And is it so big that we need to, not fly that day? I don't know. But I went to fly with him, and I was kind of leery, but he was several rides before solo. So I will instruct each student differently based on where they are in training and where they are mentally and where they are as far as, performance wise in the aircraft. And so this day I decided, because he was still so far from solo, that I was going to essentially be a confidence coach. I could see very quickly that he had the ability to fly, but he did not believe he had the ability to fly. And I needed him to see that. And so I spent a lot of time while we're flying, like kind of making sure he didn't bust out of the area and fail for like dumb little things, like just kind of propping him up a little bit, if you will. And he came back and landed, and I took him into a separate debriefing room. Usually we're in a big room with everyone else. And I pulled him aside, and he's sitting across from me, and I'm standing up because that's how we debrief. And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he paused, and you could see on his face, he was like, "Are you actually asking me that? Nobody asked me that. Like, is this a trick?
Right. Is this a trick question?"
What?
And yeah, because nobody asks you that. You just keep on plugging away. You just go. You got to be tough. And this kid's tough, but he had something going on. And so I said, he didn't even answer because he was still like spinning his wheels. And I said, "I'm picking up feelings of defeat." And instantly his whole body went, and he kind of like slumped down. And he goes, "Yeah, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. I didn't have any trouble landing the T6, but I can't land the T-38. And that was all I needed to hear, because his perspective was off. I explained to him, I said, "Hey, the T-38 is one of the most difficult aircraft in the Air Force inventory to land. Tiny little wings, tiny little gear at super fast speeds. It takes time. I see nothing in your grade book, and I saw nothing today flying, and I've been doing this for a while, that makes me concerned that you're not going to be ready by solo." And I'm not saying I'm the reason that he shifted his trajectory into a positive direction. He chose to take the information I gave him, but it was information that he would have not had if I hadn't gone, "Hey, what's going on?" And that's kind of where I was like, we need to care about what they're thinking. It doesn't mean we need to baby them. That's not what I'm saying. There's a difference. You can care and still be tough, right? So, just actually asking that question, well, what's going on? And just clearing up the muddy water, and so I kind of went on this trail of studying mental performance training for athletes and just thinking we need to do this in the aviation world.
So
that's awesome.
Now that you're doing it, let me ask, what's the, and I want to go deeper than this, but what's the 90-second elevator pitch to get people to understand that they need this program? I know you just explained a lot of it, but
yeah, I could say it in like
what
a
is
sentence.
it in summary? What's the elevator pitch?
Pilots need mental performance training because you can't just pull over on a cloud.
Boom.
You have to keep your mind in the game. And it does things like enhance focus, boost confidence, reduce stress, and ultimately it increases safety. That's what it's what it's all about. Being in the moment, flying the plane and not dwelling on the mistakes you just made or worrying about too much about what's coming ahead of you, or, we have to be flying the plane. You guys are both pilots. You can't just check out. It just doesn't work like that. But how do you not do that? There's a lot of instructors that they understand the concepts of don't be a perfectionist and get over the mistake you just made and don't be so stressed out, but nobody tells you how.
Right.
And that's where this course comes in. It teaches you techniques on how, and there's various techniques that people can use, and people use different ones. They, this works for me, but this one didn't work so much. So
that's awesome.
That's perfect. And I think a show title, you can't just pull over on a cloud.
That's my tagline.
I like that.
Yeah. So, well, that's awesome. So how long have you been doing cross-check mental performance then? Is this new or?
It's fairly new. I officially started it probably a year and a half ago, but the first course launch was just about a year ago now. And so the course is 4 weeks long, and it has about 45 minutes to an hour of recorded video content that I teach, but it also has a live discussion group where I interact with the students and they get to interact with each other each of the weeks. So there's another component to it where I think it's important. And a lot of the students don't realize this until they actually come to the discussion group. At the end of it, they say, wow, it was so nice having those people or come to, and meeting other people that feel just like me. And this is not just for the struggling student. It's for the student who has check ride anxiety, or not student. It's actually, I have airline pilots that go through. I have military pilots that go through. It's anyone who knows that they could level up their game by being more mentally ready, whether you're already performing and maybe you stress more than you should, or you're struggling to, perform well in the jet. It doesn't matter your experience level. It's, if you understand the importance of mindset and mental performance, this course is good for a pilot at any level.
I could totally see that.
Yeah, right.
I think Repeat needs this class.
Oh, I know I need it, but that's I just didn't have it ready. You're a better pilot than I am.
But, the funny thing is that most people will tell me, they're like, Tammy, this isn't just for pilots. And my sister has taken the course. She's not a pilot. I had an Olympic hurdler take the course, just filter out the aviation stuff. But because of that, I'm actually creating a non-aviation version that will be launching probably December.
Sure. How much coursework is there outside of the group discussion and the video? Is there assigned reading or?
No, there's the 45 minutes to an hour of video content, but there's what I call action items. So they usually, in this particular course, they get 2 action items, and one is a study technique for flying, like 4 of my best study techniques. And then each week also has a mindset or mental performance action item. And it's typically not so much homework as it's something I want you to implement into your day, into your life, because you can't teach this in one day. I have it time released, so they get a week and they have to wait another week till they get another lesson, because I want them to implement these changes over time. Because if you just try and do everything in one day, it's not going to work.
Right.
So not homework per se, just techniques to change.
A lab. You got a practice lab until next week.
That's a really good way to put it.
Very cool. That's brilliant. I'm excited to see and learn more about that. Like I say, if not for me, for my daughter even. But I know, Fig, you're an instructor at your job.
Yeah.
Some of these techniques sound
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. There was an airline guy in the last class who was talking about doing simulator training with his captain or whatever, and he was applying some of the techniques that I gave him. And it was so interesting to have him come back and say, this was so helpful. And, the captain actually said, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's changed? So that was really nice. It's nice to see the outcomes and the people feeling more comfortable and confident in their job as an aviator, because they're starting to believe in themselves and they have the tools to do that now, because a lot of times people just don't know how to get there.
Right.
Or they feel like they can't.
You put it to me about, you got to get out of your own way.
Yeah. And a lot of people will feel this way, but they won't tell anyone because they feel like, as a pilot, I can't ever show anyone or tell anyone that I'm lacking in any bit of confidence anywhere. When it's just truly a reality of aviation, you're not going to be confident all the time. It's just the truth. It's like you can't know everything. Like, there's so many instructors that say, "Oh, you got to know everything." I'm sorry, but that's not realistic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's fantastic. Wow. Well, this has been a fun couple of shows. Thank you so much. I am so thrilled you joined us. I can't wait to hear the good feedback we're going to get on this. So
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. This was really good, and you tell a great story.
You really do. You really do. So, all right. Well, we've said it before, but it's insufficient. But thank you for your service, and thank you especially to your children and your husband who have had to sacrifice some time with mom. I mean, it's important. You said before the show started that you put them first when they're home, and that's great. But I know that they got some time away from mom that they would not have otherwise had you not taken this path.
Yeah.
So thank you. And thank you to them, because their sacrifice, they didn't volunteer for it, but it's appreciated by all of us who enjoy our freedoms. Yeah. So
well said.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks over to Dave Hamilton over at backbeatmedia.com, who gives us the technical know-how and supports us with advertising. Any other thank yous there, Fig?
Well, we need to thank our producer that's hanging out in the background there, Sticks, who's one of the big brains of the operation, him and Bago. Thank you, Sticks, for doing what you do back there, because he makes it all look so seamlessly easy. Thanks to Badass, that's Brad Silcott, BDS Aviation, for supplying us with outstanding aviation photographs.
Yep. And one behind me now. And let's see, who else? I'm just going blank. All right. Well, hey, you know what?
How about FTI
ratings?
FTI ratings. FTI ratings.com.
That's right. Our sponsor.
Sponsoring the show
making
this
this
week.
all possible. And that makes it also, thank you to our Patreon supporters. Go to sotheriwas.us/Patreon and waste your money. I mean, throw your money at us. We're deeply appreciative to all of you who do that. And we're going to have a quick extra story for you and for you only, for those of you that have opened your wallet and parted with your money to help keep this show going for other people. We're deeply appreciative to all of you for that. And then we mentioned ratings. Go to sotheriwas.us/rate and give us a 5-star rating. Count them 5, not 4. Not 3. You got to give a 3-star rating. Find another show. Not this one.
If you can't give us 5 stars, tell us what we could do to make it 5 stars. Right. Because we're trainable, for crying out loud.
Exactly.
We're trainable.
We'll make it so. Give us a chance to fix it, and then give us our 5-star rating. So, all right. So there it was.us/merch. Go get yourself a coffee mug, a beach towel, a bikini. You name it.
It's still bikini season in Tucson.
There you go.
Just saying.
All right. Yeah. Fig, you haven't worn yours lately, but, what can I say? All right. We got to get out of here. Thank you so much, everybody. Until next week. Oh, you know what?
Right over my bald head.
Yeah. We need to thank those two guys.
That's the two F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good. That's the Dos Gringos.
That's them.
4 albums, not a bad song on any one of them. I laugh my ass off every time I listen to their songs. Thank you, Dos Gringos. There's a couple badasses right there. That's not the Dos Gringos.
Gringos. Las Gringas.
That's the Dos Gringas.
Right. All right.
That's a good picture.
So, all right, now let me play that outro officially. There it goes.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down in the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Hold on, what did he say, Fig?
He said it's over.
Oh,
I like to see a man of advancing years throwing caution to the wind.
and we are out.
What? What was that?
That was
What was that from?
Groundhog Day.
That's right. I knew her voice. I couldn't figure
Yeah.
out who that was. Thank you.